My name's Olivia Carter, and for years I was the embarrassment of my family. The failure. The sister who didn't make it big, who didn't marry rich, who didn't live up to the Carter name. They laughed at me for working in restaurants. They said I'd never amount to anything. But last month, my sister booked her engagement dinner at my restaurant, and she didn't even know it. So when she mocked me in front of everyone, called me the maid of society, I smiled, because that night, I wasn't just serving her table. I was serving her karma. Story begins. I still remember the sound of the envelope hitting my doorstep. A white envelope with gold trim, heavy like it was made to make someone feel small. Vanessa Carter and Ethan Moore, engagement dinner. Even before I opened it, my stomach twisted. Her name alone had that effect. Because my sister never sent invitations, she sent reminders of where I stood beneath her. Inside was a note in her perfectly curved handwriting. Olivia, I know you're busy serving tables these days, but I'd love for you to come. Just make sure you're not working that night. It might confuse the guests. That smiley face. It wasn't kindness. It was venom. I stood there in my tiny apartment, the scent of garlic and coffee lingering from my shift. My waitress uniform was still folded neatly on the chair, and I couldn't help but laugh, because that engagement dinner, the one she was bragging about on Facebook, the one where she planned to host something elegant, was being held at La Belle Maison, my restaurant. The irony was delicious. No one in my family knew I owned it. Not Mom, not Vanessa, not the relatives who whispered that I was a disappointment. 2 years ago, I bought the place quietly. Kept the staff, the name, the magic. But behind every order, every menu, every paycheck, was me. And now, my sister had walked right into my world, still believing she was above me. I set the invitation on my table and whispered to myself, "All right, Vanessa, let's have dinner." Flashback. When I was the failure 3 years earlier, I wasn't this calm. Back then, I was just the girl who worked at a diner and came home to a mother who wished I'd been someone else. Vanessa had it all. The career, the looks, the fiancé, the perfect life. And I had dreams that didn't fit into her version of success. When Dad passed away, I told Mom I wanted to use the inheritance to start a small cafe. She laughed. You? You can't even balance your bills, Olivia. Vanessa's investing in real estate. You're buying coffee beans. That night, Vanessa told me over dinner, "Not everyone's meant to be successful, Liv. Some people just serve others who are." I didn't reply, but those words stayed with me. Like shards of glass I couldn't pull out, so I left. I packed my bags, took a small apartment, and started working at a restaurant downtown. At first it was survival, then it became purpose. Because for the first time in my life, I was building something that was mine. The rise they never saw. I learned everything from the bottom up, serving, cleaning, managing. I stayed late, studied food business models, watched how the owner ran things. And over time, the owner, an old man named Mr. Miller, noticed. He once said to me, "Olivia, you've got something most people don't. Pride in doing it right, no matter who's watching." When he retired, he sold me the restaurant, on one condition, that I keep my ownership quiet for a year. He said, "Let the respect come from your work first, not your name." And I did. I built La Belle Maison into one of the most exclusive fine dining restaurants in the city. Celebrities dined there. CEOs booked months ahead. And yet, my family still thought I was a waitress. Maybe that's what made it so satisfying. The night arrives. The night of Vanessa's engagement came faster than I expected. The city was glowing, rain softly tapping the windows, and the restaurant looked perfect. Candles flickered across white linen tables. The staff moved with calm precision, every detail flawless. I wore my uniform that night, on purpose. Because power doesn't always need a crown. Sometimes it hides behind humility. At 7:10 p.m., Vanessa walked in. Her laughter filled the room before her perfume did. She wore a glittering silver dress and a smile that could slice glass. Behind her, her fiancé, Ethan, looked effortlessly polished, a man who'd probably never known struggle. When her eyes met mine, her smirk appeared instantly. "Oh my God," she said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "They actually let you work here? Guess even the rich need help, huh?" The other guest chuckled awkwardly. She loved the attention. She loved making me small. I simply smiled and said, "Welcome to La Belle Maison." Her fiancé looked at me curiously. You work here? Before I could answer, Vanessa interjected. She's a waitress, Ethan. You know, those people who bring food to real guests. I stayed silent. Because I didn't need to explain anything. The truth had a reservation tonight, the calm before the storm. The dinner went on like a performance. Vanessa was the star, boasting about her job, her fiancé, her future. Mom kept nodding like an audience member in awe. And me? I played my part, quiet, polite, invisible, but inside I could feel the storm building. Every word Vanessa said, every insult disguised as a joke. It only fueled the moment that was coming. At one point, she waved me over mid-conversation and said, Olivia, could you pour us some wine? Try not to spill it this time. The table laughed. Even Mom smiled. I didn't react. I poured her wine slowly, carefully, and said softly, Don't worry, Vanessa. I've gotten really good at this, she smirked. I'm sure you have. If only she knew how right she was. That night, after the final dish was served and the guests settled into their seats, I slipped into the office upstairs. My hands trembled, not from nerves, but from the weight of what was about to happen. I opened the old safe and pulled out the ownership file Mr. Miller had signed 2 years ago. My name, my restaurant, every insult, every laugh, every humiliation. It led to this paper. I looked in the mirror, fixing my hair, and whispered, You wanted to see what success looks like, Vanessa. You're about to have the front row seat. Then I walked back downstairs, my heels echoing softly against the floor. Vanessa's laughter carried across the room, but this time it didn't sting. It sounded like the opening note to a song I'd waited years to play, and tonight, I was going to finish it. The music was soft, too soft for a room full of people pretending to be perfect. Crystal glasses chimed under the golden chandeliers, and laughter floated through the air like perfume. Artificial, heavy, suffocating. I stood near the corner of the room, tray in hand, watching my sister hold court at her own engagement dinner. Vanessa always loved a spotlight, and tonight, she glowed under it like it was built just for her. But the way she looked at me, like I was furniture, that was the part I'd gotten used to. Her fiancé, Ethan, was charming, the kind of man who ordered in French just to prove he could. When he laughed, the whole table laughed with him. Except me, because as I poured champagne into Vanessa's glass, she leaned back in her chair, her tone light but sharp. Careful, Olivia. This isn't one of your little diners. You spill this, it'll cost you a month's paycheck. The guests chuckled. Even Mom smiled behind her glass of wine. That one stung, not because of the words themselves, but because of the silence that followed. The kind where no one defends you. The kind that tells you exactly where you stand. I took a breath, steady and quiet, and smiled. Don't worry, Vanessa. I can afford it, she blinked, clearly not expecting me to respond. Her lips curled into a scoff. Afford it? Since when do waitresses make that kind of money? I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't make it. I owned it. Flashback. 2 years earlier. There was a time when I really couldn't afford it. Back when I shared a cramped apartment with a roommate who smoked too much and paid too little. I worked double shifts at the old restaurant downtown. No sleep, no days off. It was there that I met Mr. Miller, the owner of La Belle Maison. A man in his 60s, quiet but always watching. He once found me crying behind the service counter after a customer threw wine in my face because his steak wasn't medium enough. I tried to wipe the tears before he saw, but he didn't scold me. He just said, Let them have their tantrums, Olivia. The world needs people who can stay calm when others lose their manners. That moment stayed with me. So did he. Over time, he started teaching me everything. Inventory, licensing, how to talk to suppliers. He said I reminded him of his late daughter, someone who'd loved the restaurant life for its rhythm, not the glamour. When he retired, he called me into his office one last time. There was an envelope on the desk, a contract inside. You've earned this, he said. Don't tell anyone, not yet. Success tastes best when served quietly, and that's exactly what I did. For 2 years, I stayed quiet. Let the world believe I was just another waitress, while I built something no one could take away. Back to the present, the dinner Olivia. Vanessa's voice snapped me back to reality. She waved her manicured hand impatiently. We're out of wine. Can you be useful and get another bottle? Make it the expensive one. Ethan loves the vintage stuff. I nodded and turned away before my face betrayed what I felt. Mr. Hayes caught my eye from the bar. He could see it, the tension, the restraint. He mouthed, "You okay?" I gave a small nod. As I grabbed the new bottle, I overheard my mother's voice floating from the table. "You have to understand, Ethan. Olivia's always been different. Never ambitious like Vanessa. We tried to help her, but she just likes small things." Small things. That phrase hit me harder than I expected. I had heard it before, years ago, in that same cold tone. Flashback. The goodbye, it was the night I left home. I had just told Mom I was moving out, that I'd been accepted into a management course through a scholarship. She didn't celebrate. She didn't even look at me. "You're chasing nonsense," she said. "Vanessa's already making 6 figures. You're throwing away your life for tips." Vanessa stood beside her, arms crossed, perfect as always. "Mom's right. You'll come back broke in 6 months. You always do this, Liv. You dream too small." That night, I packed my bags and Mom didn't stop me. The last thing she said was, "Don't embarrass us." And maybe in her own way, that was the start of it all. The moment I promised myself that if I ever came back, I'd make sure I did it in a way she'd never forget. Back in the present, I poured the wine and smiled like nothing was wrong. The table buzzed with laughter again. But my ears were ringing with something else. Every insult, every whisper, every look that told me I wasn't enough. And suddenly, it didn't sting anymore. It just motivated me. The toast after dessert, Vanessa stood up and clinked her glass. "I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Especially my family, Mom, Ethan, and even my sister Olivia." The way she said it, like my name was a charity mention, it drew polite laughs from the table. She's proof that hard work pays off. Not everyone gets to work in a place this beautiful. Right, Liv? I met her gaze, calm and steady. "You're right," I said softly. "Not everyone does." She didn't get the meaning. No one did, not yet. Later, when I walked back to the bar, Mr. Hayes approached me. His voice was low. "You don't have to keep letting them do this to you," I smiled. "Just one more course," I whispered. "Then the real service begins." He didn't ask what I meant. He'd worked for me long enough to know that when I smiled like that, something was coming. Flashback. The first success, after I bought the restaurant. There were nights when I'd sit alone after closing, looking at the empty tables. No family, no friends. Just me and the echo of every doubt I'd ever heard, but every empty table meant something. It meant I had built something they said I couldn't. And one night, as I was locking up, I whispered, "Maybe success isn't loud. Maybe it's just quiet peace after years of noise." That line never left me. And tonight, surrounded by people who once laughed at me, I realized this peace was starting to taste like power. The evening went on. Guests danced. Glasses clinked. And I could feel Vanessa's eyes on me, mocking, judging, trying to pull me back into that small box she'd built for me years ago. But this time, I didn't fit. Not anymore, because this was my world now. My restaurant. My rules. And she had no idea she was standing inside the story I'd written for myself, the one where I didn't need their approval to win. By the time the last course arrived, I'd made my decision. Tonight, I wasn't just going to take her words in silence. Tonight, she'd learn who she'd really been talking down to. As I stood by the kitchen doors, the soft hum of jazz playing, I whispered to myself, "Let's serve the truth, shall we?" And just like that, the taste of silence turned into the flavor of revenge. By dessert, the restaurant was buzzing. Laughter, clinking glasses, the faint sound of jazz blending with the hum of polite conversation. Vanessa was glowing, her ring catching every bit of chandelier light like it was her own personal spotlight. And me? I was still playing my role, the quiet waitress, invisible yet indispensable. That's the thing about silence. People think it means weakness, but sometimes it's just preparation. I stood behind the bar polishing glasses that were already spotless, pretending to listen as Vanessa told another story about how she saved her company from collapse. "We landed that deal because of my presentation skills," she said proudly, swirling her wine. "I mean, not everyone can charm billion-dollar investors, right?" Her friends laughed like she'd just cured world hunger. Mom beamed with pride. And I just listened, but my heart wasn't bitter anymore. No, it was ready. A soft voice interrupted my thoughts. Everything okay, boss? It was Marissa, one of my waitresses. She was barely 22, hardworking, nervous around guests, but tonight, she was flawless. I nodded. You're doing great. Keep calm. We're almost there. She smiled, then froze for a second. Wait, should I call you Miss Olivia in front of them? I chuckled softly. Not yet. Let's give them a show first, she understood instantly. That's what I loved about my team. They respected me not because I owned this place, but because I earned it. The next dish came out, chocolate soufflé with raspberry drizzle. Vanessa's favorite. As I served it, she smiled that smug smile. You're really good at this, Liv. Who knew waitressing could be your thing? I looked at her steady. Guess I just found where I belong. Yeah, she smirked. Below the table, not at it. A few guests chuckled uncomfortably. Even Ethan tried to change the subject. But Mom laughed outright. That's when I knew she hadn't changed. Not even a little. And for a second, I almost felt the old sting again. That ache of being the forgotten child. The one who never fit in. But then I saw the restaurant reflected in the window. The chandeliers, the staff, the people enjoying my food. And the ache turned into pride. This was mine. Every inch of it. And they didn't even know flashback. The day I bought it, it was the smallest moment. No confetti, no champagne. Just me and Mr. Miller in his office. He handed me the final documents and said, Ownership isn't about power, Olivia. It's about responsibility. If you ever forget that, you'll lose everything. I had nodded, but now those words echoed louder than ever. Because tonight wasn't about revenge alone. It was about reclaiming every piece of dignity they'd stolen. Back in the dining room, the night was winding down. The last course was finished, and guests began thanking Vanessa and Ethan for the wonderful venue. This place is perfect, one woman said. You really picked the best restaurant in town, Vanessa preened. Oh, I know. I told Ethan, it's classy but not too expensive. We didn't want to waste money on something overpriced. Her words were light, but each one landed like a tap on a landmine. I smiled and walked up to the table with the final checkbook in hand. The air was still, expectant. I could feel the rhythm of my heartbeat in my ears. Thank you for dining with us tonight, I said softly, placing the check in front of Ethan. He reached for it, but Vanessa stopped him. Oh, come on, Liv, don't be silly. Just put it on the owner's tab. I'm sure they wouldn't mind for such a big party. The owner's tab. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I leaned closer, my tone calm but deliberate. You're right. I don't mind, her brow furrowed. What do you mean? Before I could answer, Mr. Hayes appeared behind me, a knowing look in his eyes. Ma'am, the owner asked me to personally thank you for your business tonight. Vanessa flipped her hair. Well, she should be honored to host us. Oh, Hayes said with a polite smile. She is. After all, she's standing right next to you. The entire table went silent. Forks clinked against plates. Mom's hand froze midair, holding her glass. What are you talking about? Vanessa said, half laughing. Hayes nodded toward me. This is her restaurant. Miss Olivia Parker, owner of Maison Azur. The words dropped like a bomb. For a moment, all I heard was the sound of the jazz music in the background. Then nothing. Just silence. Vanessa's smile faltered, her hand tightening around her glass. That's not funny, Liv, I smiled. Who said I was joking? Ethan looked between us, his expression a mix of confusion and disbelief. Wait, you own this place? Every table, every wall, every paycheck in this room, I said softly. I'm the one who signs them. Mom's face went pale. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, You mean you actually... You're the owner? I nodded slowly. The same failure you laughed at. The same waitress you told everyone was a disappointment. The weight of my words hung heavy in the air. Vanessa's laughter came out forced, trembling. You can't expect me to believe that. You? You could never... But she stopped when she saw Hayes hand her the receipt, with my signature printed neatly at the bottom. Owner, Olivia Parker. Her face changed then. The arrogance melted into disbelief, then shame. Mom's eyes filled with something worse than shock. It was realization. Realization that every word she'd ever used to cut me down had just turned into her own undoing. Ethan cleared his throat, awkwardly. Wow, Olivia, this place is incredible. You built this from scratch? I nodded. From scratch. And from silence. No one spoke after that. The room that once echoed with laughter now held the kind of quiet that only truth could create. When Vanessa finally stood up, she didn't meet my eyes. She just whispered, "You could have told us." I smiled faintly. And missed this moment? For the first time in years, I walked away from them feeling weightless. No anger, no bitterness. Just freedom. Later that night, after everyone left, I stood alone in the dining hall. The candles had burned low, the air thick with the scent of wine and roses. Mr. Hayes came up beside me. "You handled that better than most would have." I shrugged, smiling. "Revenge doesn't need to scream," I said quietly. "Sometimes it just smiles and walks away." He chuckled. "That's cold." "No," I whispered. "That's peace." And as I turned off the lights one by one, the empty restaurant reflected back something I hadn't seen in years. Not pride, not power, but closure. I woke up before the sun. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up with that heavy, familiar knot in my chest. No dread about another shift. No echoes of my mother's voice calling me a disappointment. Just silence, clean, still, peaceful. But peace has a strange way of feeling unfamiliar when you've lived too long inside pain. I sat at the edge of my bed, watching the early light stretch across the floorboards of my apartment. The same small one-bedroom I'd chosen even after owning 3 restaurants. Because comfort never came from square footage, it came from control. And last night, I finally took that back. The call I didn't expect, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. For a second, I thought it was Marissa, maybe some issue with the invoices. But the caller ID made my stomach tighten. "Mom." I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. It buzzed again, and again. By the 3rd time, I answered, not out of forgiveness, but curiosity. "Olivia?" Her voice was small, careful. I didn't sleep last night." "That makes 2 of us," I said flatly. A silence filled the line, thick as fog. She finally whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" "All this time." "I thought you were struggling." "You never asked," I said. "Not once." Another pause. I could hear her breathing, uneven, almost panicked. "You embarrassed me, Olivia. In front of everyone." "No, Mom," I cut in quietly. "I just showed you the truth. You embarrassed yourself years ago, when you stopped believing in me." She exhaled shakily. "I didn't stop believing. I was just afraid for you." "No," I said, voice steady. "You were afraid of me becoming something without you taking credit." I hung up before she could answer. For a long minute I sat there, phone still in my hand, heart calm. Not angry, just done. Flashback, the dinner before everything changed. 4 years ago, in the same apartment, I'd been sitting on this same bed when Vanessa came to visit. It was her birthday. She wanted money for a trip to Paris. "Come on, Liv," she'd said. "You make tips. Can't you spare a little for your big sister?" I'd given her what I had, $200, and she'd called it cute. "You should really think about getting a real job." She left laughing. And that night, I swore to myself I'd never ask for their approval again. I'd find a way to build something so solid, they'd have to look up to see me. Back to now. Knock on the door around noon. There was a knock. Soft, hesitant. When I opened the door, Vanessa was standing there in a cream coat and oversized sunglasses. Even her apologies were fashionable. "Olivia," she started, "can we talk?" I let her in. She looked around like she expected something different, maybe gold walls or a chandelier. "This is where you live?" "Home," I said. "Simple enough," she nodded, awkward. Then sank into the sofa like a guest in a foreign country. "I can't believe you own Maison Azur. I mean..." "How?" I smiled. "By working the shifts you laughed at." Her cheeks flushed. "Okay, I deserve that." I watched her twist her hands in her lap, searching for words. "I was jealous, Liv. You always had this peace about you. I thought if I could tear you down, I'd feel taller." "Did it work?" I asked. "No," she whispered. Not for a second. For the first time since we were kids, her voice didn't sound sharp. It sounded small. The apology that wasn't enough. "Mom's been crying since last night," Vanessa said. "She thinks you hate her." "I don't hate her," I said. "I just don't trust her." She looked at me then. Really looked. You're stronger than I thought. No, I said. I just stopped asking for permission to be, she smiled sadly. You should come home for dinner this week. Let's start over, I shook my head. You don't start over by pretending nothing happened. Vanessa's eyes shone with tears. Then what do we do? You listen, I said softly. You sit with the truth you spent years avoiding. And maybe someday you'll earn a seat at my table again. She nodded slowly, stood, and walked to the door. I really am proud of you, Liv, she said quietly. Even if it kills me to admit it. It doesn't have to, I replied. Unless you let it. When the door closed behind her, I didn't cry. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally didn't have to. That evening at the restaurant back at Maison Azur, the staff was buzzing. They'd heard about the reveal. Half the city probably had by now. Marissa rushed up to me, beaming. Boss, you were legendary. You should have seen their faces. I laughed. I did. Front row seat, she grinned. Everyone's talking about it online. Someone recorded the moment. I groaned playfully. Great, now revenge has gone viral. But inside, a tiny part of me felt warm. Not for the fame, for the validation. Years of being invisible had finally ended. I walked through the kitchen, watching my chefs prep dinner service, and realized something simple. This was my family now. People who saw my worth without me having to prove it. Flashback. Mr. Miller's lesson. Months before he retired, Mr. Miller had told me, success is loud for a moment and quiet for a lifetime. Choose the quiet kind, Olivia. I finally understood what he meant. Last night was loud. Today was quiet. And it was enough. Late night reflection, the restaurant was empty again. I sat by the window, watching the city lights reflect on the glass, and for the first time I didn't see loneliness. I saw freedom. I pulled out my notebook and wrote something at the top of a new page. Let go. Not to forget, but to live. The pen shook slightly in my hand as I realized this chapter of my life was closing. Not with revenge, but with release. Tomorrow I'd still wake up and run a restaurant. But I wouldn't be the girl who needed to prove herself anymore. I was the woman who did. It had been 4 days since the dinner. 4 days since Vanessa's smirk turned into silence. And my mother's pride turned into shame. I thought it would fade quickly, that they'd pretend it never happened, like every other uncomfortable truth in our family. But this time, it didn't. This time, everyone found out. The story spreads it started with a TikTok. A shaky, vertical video captioned, "When your family mocks you for being a waitress. But you own the restaurant," 20 seconds of footage. Me standing beside the table, calm and composed. Vanessa's stunned face when the manager said, "She's the owner." Mom clutching her wine glass like it was her last lifeline. It had over 2 million views in a day. Then came the YouTube edits. The reaction videos, the Reddit threads titled, "She served her family the truth." I didn't even post it. But there I was, trending, dissected, admired by strangers who didn't know me, but somehow understood me better than my own blood ever had. Calls. From the past, my phone didn't stop ringing. Journalists, influencers, even old classmates suddenly remembered my name, and then my mother called again. I almost ignored it. But curiosity won. "Olivia," she said quickly, voice trembling. "Have you seen the video? Everyone's calling me. Your aunt, my church friends, even the board members at the foundation. Maybe next time don't treat your daughter like she's beneath you at a public dinner," I said coldly. "Don't speak to me that way," she snapped, then softened immediately. "Sweetheart, listen. People are misunderstanding what happened. We should clear it up, together." "Clear it up?" I repeated. "You mean fix your reputation?" Silence. "There's a charity gala this weekend," she continued. "A lot of important people will be there. If you come with me, it'll show everyone we're a strong family. We can end all this drama," I almost laughed. Strong family? She didn't want reconciliation. She wanted damage control. "No, Mom," I said quietly. "You started the drama. I just stopped playing my part," and I hung up. Flashback. When her words cut. Deepest, I still remember the night after college when I told her I'd gotten a job at La Belle Maison. She'd scoffed. "A waitress, Olivia? After all that education? You're wasting your life." "It's temporary," I'd said. "I want to learn the business side of hospitality." Hospitality? She interrupted. You mean carrying trays? That was the night she told me she was done helping failures. She didn't even come to visit me after that, so when she said strong family now, all I could think of was that night, her voice like a knife disguised as advice. Unwanted fame. By Friday, the restaurant was packed. People wanted to meet the waitress who owned the place. The irony wasn't lost on me. Some came for food, others for gossip. But I treated everyone the same. Professional, calm, proud. Then a journalist showed up from the New York Chronicle. Ms. Parker, he said, smiling, your story's inspiring. Women across the country are sharing it. How does it feel to go viral for standing up to your family? I thought about that. Standing up to them hadn't felt like revenge. It had felt like breathing after years underwater. It feels like peace, I said simply. He nodded, but I could tell he wanted something juicier. Any chance your family might respond? Maybe a reunion? I smiled politely. If they do, I hope they leave a good tip. He laughed, but there was an edge to it, the kind that comes from knowing the story wasn't over yet. The gala Saturday night. The charity gala my mother mentioned was trending on social media. She arrived in a red gown, flawless as ever, photographers flashing around her like fireflies. And then I saw her, holding a microphone. On stage. Sometimes families face misunderstandings, she said to the crowd. But as mothers, we must forgive and embrace our children. My daughter Olivia, a restaurant owner, has always been my pride. I stood in the back of the ballroom, watching her rewrite history in real time. People clapped. She smiled. She looked like the perfect mother again, until someone from the crowd yelled, "Where's Olivia tonight?" She froze. Her smile faltered for just a second. Then she said, "She's busy. Running her restaurant, I'm sure." But the cameras caught it. The flicker of guilt, the tightness around her eyes. And just like that, the crowd knew, because no matter how much lipstick you paint over a wound, the scar still shows. Later that night, I was at Maison Azur again, closing up. The air smelled like rosemary and wine, faint jazz playing softly. It was late, nearly 1 a.m., when the door opened. It was Mom. Not the woman in diamonds from the gala. Just Mom. Her makeup was gone. Her eyes were red. "You saw the speech?" she asked. I did. "I shouldn't have gone up there," she said. "I just didn't know what else to do." "You could have called to apologize," I said. Privately. She sat down at the nearest table, exhaling shakily. "I was wrong, Olivia. About everything. I thought success looked one way. Expensive, public, loud. But you built something real." For a moment, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to melt into the version of her I'd needed years ago. But I'd learned the hard way. Regret doesn't erase cruelty. "You don't get to rewrite our story," I said softly. "Not for the press, not for your friends, and not for your pride." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I just want my daughter back." I looked at her, the woman who once told me I'd never be enough. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt free. "You lost me when you stopped seeing me," I said. "Now I think it's time I see myself." She nodded slowly, as if she finally understood. Then she whispered, "I'm proud of you, Liv." "I know," I said quietly. "I just wish you'd said it sooner." Epilogue of that night when she left, I stayed behind, staring at the empty table she'd sat at. For years I'd dreamed of that moment, her apology, her tears, my triumph. But standing there, I realized something strange. The revenge I thought I wanted didn't feel like revenge at all. It felt like release, like finally walking out of a cage I didn't even know I'd built around myself. I smiled to myself, turned off the lights, and whispered under my breath, "Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't payback. It's peace." The morning after my mother's visit, I came into Maison Azur early. The sunrise poured through the glass windows, gold spilling over polished tables and empty chairs. It was quiet again. My kind of quiet. The kind where you could hear your own heartbeat, steady and strong. For the first time in years, I wasn't defined by their opinions. Not by my mother's disappointment. Not by Vanessa's cruelty. Just by my work, my people, my peace. But peace doesn't stay long when the world suddenly knows your name. The magazine cover by noon, I got an email from a journalist at Modern Women Weekly. "We'd love to feature you on our next cover. The theme, redefining success. They wanted a full-page spread. My photo, my story, my restaurant. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want to be known for revenge, but then I thought, maybe this was bigger than that. Maybe it was about showing women that dignity can grow where humiliation once lived. So I said yes. A week later, the issue came out. There I was, standing in the restaurant doorway, head held high. The headline read, "From Waitress to Owner, How Olivia Parker Turned Pain into Power." The photo went viral. Celebrities shared it. Women wrote me letters, hundreds of them, saying my story gave them courage to walk away, to start again, to stop apologizing. It felt good. Not because of the fame, but because for once, my story helped someone instead of hurting me. But not everyone was happy. Vanessa returns. 2 days later, she showed up again. No appointment, no call. Just that same click of expensive heels echoing across the marble floor. "Olivia, we need to talk." I didn't even look up from my paperwork. "I thought we already did." "Not like this," she said. "Look, the magazine thing, congratulations, really, but did you have to make it sound like we were monsters?" I raised an eyebrow. "Did I make it sound like that, or did you?" She sighed. "You know how Mom's been since all this started? She barely leaves the house. Everyone keeps asking about that video. She's humiliated. She humiliated herself," I said sharply. "You both did." "I didn't record it, Vanessa. I didn't even post it." "I know," she said softly. "But people don't care about the truth. They care about what's trending." For a moment, her voice almost sounded worried. Not for me, but for the family name. "You've got attention now," she continued. "You're famous. But fame doesn't last, Liv. People love a fall as much as a rise." "Then I'll keep standing," I said simply. She scoffed. "You always think you're better than us." "No," I said. "I just stopped pretending I was less." The words hit her like a slap. Her lips tightened, but her eyes flickered. Pain, envy, maybe even admiration. "Enjoy your 15 minutes, she muttered before turning to leave. "You'll need them when this all fades." Flashback. When we were kids, we weren't always like this. When we were little, Vanessa and I shared a room. She used to braid my hair before school. We'd whisper secrets under the blanket, giggling until Mom yelled for quiet. But somewhere along the way, she decided she wanted to be the favorite. The one Mom showed off to neighbors, to friends, to anyone who'd listen. I became the shadow, the one she shined brighter against. And I let her because I thought love had a price. Now I knew better. Love doesn't demand you shrink to fit someone else's spotlight. The invitation that evening, my assistant walked in with a letter. "It came by courier," she said. I opened it. Cream paper, gold ink. Vanessa's handwriting, engagement party, hosted by Vanessa and Ethan. You're invited. I almost laughed. The same restaurant, the same people, another event. Except this time, I had the power to say no, but something in me didn't want to. Not for revenge this time, for closure, the night of the party. The restaurant buzzed again, same chandeliers, same music, same kind of crowd. But this time I wasn't serving, I was sitting. At the head table, when Vanessa saw me, she hesitated, then smiled politely. "You came." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. The evening went smoothly at first. Champagne, polite laughter, picture-perfect smiles. Then someone from the media, who'd recognized me, approached. "Olivia Parker! We loved your story. Can we get a picture of you with your sister? A feature on successful siblings." Vanessa froze. I could feel her discomfort radiate through the air. "Of course," I said calmly. We stood side by side, lights flashing. For a moment, I saw us how the world did. Two sisters, elegant, composed, powerful. But underneath there was a storm brewing. As soon as the cameras left, she turned to me. "I didn't ask for this," she hissed. "You brought it," I said quietly. "Every time you tried to make me small," she glared. "You're still trying to make me the villain." "You don't need help with that," I said. The air between us tightened, heavy with years of resentment neither of us knew how to let go of. The breaking point later that night, I caught her in the hallway near the kitchen, whispering harshly to Ethan, "She's loving this. She thinks she's above us now. Maybe I should remind her she's still just the girl who used to wipe tables." Ethan's voice was low but firm. "Vanessa, stop. You're the one who needs to grow up. Her silence afterward said everything. When she turned and saw me standing there, her face drained of color. Don't bother, I said softly. You've reminded me enough times who I used to be. I stepped closer, calm but sharp. But here's the thing, Vanessa. I don't regret being a waitress. It taught me how to serve without being stepped on. And now, I know how to build what people like you only rent. She didn't reply. She just stared, eyes wide, mouth trembling, and then walked away. Later that night, when I finally got home, I didn't feel anger anymore. Just exhaustion. I looked in the mirror, same face, same eyes, but different energy. I'd spent years fighting to prove my worth, and for what? They'd never see me clearly because their vision was clouded by their own pride. So I made a choice that night. I'd stop waiting for their apology and start living my peace. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window and whispered to myself, some people never change. And that's okay, because I did. The city glowed outside, alive, loud, indifferent, and for the first time, I didn't need their approval to feel alive. I had my restaurant, my team, my peace, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The days following Vanessa's engagement party were oddly quiet. Too quiet. After everything that happened, I expected more drama, more whispers, maybe even a public confrontation. But nothing came. Instead, she started texting again. Small talk. Hey, Mom wants to know if you're coming for dinner. Ethan and I tried that dessert from your restaurant. Amazing. Proud of you, Liv. Truly. Her messages felt like tiny, sugary traps, too sweet to trust. Still, I tried to believe her. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had changed. Maybe the sister I once loved was still somewhere under the layers of envy and ego. So when she suggested lunch at a new cafe uptown, I said yes. The reunion, the cafe was perfect. White marble tables, soft jazz, overpriced coffee. Vanessa looked radiant, dressed like she'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. Liv, she said, hugging me like we were long-lost best friends. You look incredible, I replied cautiously. We sat down. She ordered sparkling water. I ordered black coffee. I read that article about you again, she said. Can you believe it? My little sister, a business mogul. You've come a long way. Her tone was almost genuine. Almost. Yeah, I said. It's been a journey. You know, she leaned in, lowering her voice. I've been thinking. Maybe we could work together. You've got the restaurant empire, I've got connections in the social scene. We could launch a lifestyle brand. Food, design, luxury events. You'd be the face, I'd handle PR. I blinked. Vanessa never offered partnership, only competition. Why now? I asked carefully. She smiled, swirling her straw in the glass. Because people love redemption stories. Two sisters reconnecting, turning rivalry into business. It's PR gold. She wasn't talking about family. She was talking about content. I smiled politely. I'll think about it. Good, she said, raising her glass. To new beginnings. I clinked mine against hers, but in my gut, something twisted. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Flashback, the day I left. Home as I walked home that night, her words brought back the day everything fell apart. I was 19 when Mom kicked me out. Dad had already passed away. Vanessa had just gotten into law school, and she was the golden child. I had dreams. Culinary school, travel, opening my own place someday. Mom called it a fantasy. You're wasting your life, Olivia, she said, her voice cold. Cooking isn't a career. It's what housewives do. It's what I love, I whispered. Then love it somewhere else, she snapped, because under my roof, we work for real success. I remember standing outside that night, my suitcase heavy, my chest hollow. Vanessa stood by the window, watching me leave, expression unreadable. She didn't wave. That was the last time I saw her before I became the family embarrassment. The interview offer 2 weeks after our lunch, I got a call from Evening Light Network, one of the biggest talk shows in the state. "We want to feature your story," the producer said. "You'll be speaking to Linda Monroe, live audience, national broadcast. We'll focus on your journey from waitress to owner." It was huge, career-defining. I said yes instantly. The PR team sent over questions, setup details, wardrobe suggestions. Everything was perfect, until the morning of the taping. My assistant rushed into my office, panic in her eyes. "Liv, someone leaked your old employment record." "What do you mean?" She handed me her phone. "On social media and screenshots everywhere. Olivia Parker, fired from multiple jobs for attitude problems. Not self-made, got money from shady investors. Fake documents, twisted stories, hundreds of comments tearing me apart. And at the bottom, an anonymous account that first posted them. The handle, Avi Van Events." My stomach dropped. Vanessa's initials, her new event company's name. I called her immediately. She answered on the third ring, her tone sugary sweet. "Liv, big day, huh? What's up?" "Don't play dumb," I snapped. "You leaked those files." "What? Of course not," she said quickly. "Why would I ruin my own sister's image?" "Because it's what you've always done," I said coldly. "You can't stand that I got here without you." "Wow," she whispered, pretending to sound hurt. Still the paranoid little sister. Click. She hung up. The breaking point. The interview was in 2 hours. Every instinct told me to cancel. But I didn't. I walked into that studio with my head high, heart pounding. Linda Monroe smiled warmly. Olivia Parker, the woman who turned rejection into empire. Welcome. I smiled, though my hands trembled slightly. As the cameras rolled, I told my story. Every painful piece of it. The humiliation. The years of working nights, saving pennies. The betrayal that pushed me forward. And when she asked, "You've been accused of not being self-made. What do you say to that?" I looked straight into the camera. "Then let me say it clearly. I built this life from the ground up. No handouts, no shortcuts, and if anyone wants proof, they can come eat at my restaurant. It's open every night." The audience erupted in applause. The network posted the clip online. Within 24 hours, it hit 1 million views. Hashtags exploded. Olivia Parker truth. People defended me, exposed the fake documents, and pointed to Vanessa's company's involvement. Her brand started losing sponsors. Event clients pulled out. It was karma. Loud, swift, poetic. "The call that night," she called. Her voice was trembling. "Liv, please. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Someone from PR said stirring drama might boost both our exposure. I swear I didn't know it'd blow up like this." "You sabotaged me on live TV," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You humiliated me again." "I was jealous," she admitted quietly. "You had everything I wanted. Success, independence, respect. I thought if I could bring you down, maybe I'd feel better about myself." Silence stretched between us, long, suffocating silence. "You need help, Vanessa," I said finally, "and not the kind money can buy." She started crying softly. "I'm sorry, Liv. I really am." "Sorry doesn't fix broken trust," I said, "but maybe it's a start." I hung up before she could answer. The morning after. The next morning, when I walked into the restaurant, the staff stood waiting, clapping, smiling, proud. They'd seen the interview. They'd seen the truth. One of the waiters, Miguel, handed me a note. "We're proud to work for you, boss. You remind us that no job is small, only people who forget where they started." Tears filled my eyes. I pinned that note on my office wall, because that was the real heart of it all. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about redemption. Epilogue moment. That evening, as I walked through the dining hall, I saw a woman sitting quietly by the window. My mother. She looked older, softer. When our eyes met, she stood. "I saw the interview," she said. "You spoke like your father would have, with grace." "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Vanessa's in bad shape," she whispered. "She lost everything. I think she finally understands what she did. I hope so, I said quietly. You're not angry? Not anymore, I replied. Anger's heavy. I've carried it long enough. She nodded slowly, eyes glistening. I'm proud of you, Olivia. The words were simple, but they hit deep, the kind of validation I'd chased my whole life. And yet, standing there, I realized I didn't need it anymore. I'd already proven my worth. To the world. To them, and finally to myself. A week after the interview, the restaurant was busier than ever. Reservations were full for 2 months ahead. Every night, people came not just for the food, but for the story behind it. They wanted to see the woman who went from being a waitress to owning the place. Some came to congratulate me. Some came to take pictures, but me? I still showed up early every morning, wearing the same apron, tasting the same sauce, greeting my staff like family, because no matter how far I went, I never wanted to forget where I started. But while my world was rising, Vanessa's was collapsing. The crash had started with small things. Her company's social media went silent. Sponsors withdrew. Clients canceled events, afraid of being linked to the scandal. Then one morning, my phone buzzed, a news headline. Vanessa Parker's event company declares bankruptcy after viral backlash. There was a photo of her outside her office, sunglasses, hair messy, looking lost. She wasn't the polished woman who once strutted through my restaurant. She looked human. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. That evening, Mom came by again. She held a newspaper in her hand, tears in her eyes. She's lost everything, Olivia, she whispered. The apartment, the contracts, even Ethan left. He said she's been lying to clients about money. I froze. Ethan left her? He said she changed. That she became obsessed with destroying you. And when it backfired, he couldn't watch anymore. I sank into my chair. A part of me wanted to feel relief. Another part, the one that still remembered the little girl who used to braid my hair, just felt tired. Mom looked at me with pleading eyes. She has nowhere to go. What are you asking, Mom? She needs help, she said softly. And whether you like it or not, you're the only one who can. I closed my eyes, taking a long, shaky breath. The visit 2 nights later, I drove to her apartment, or what was left of it. The landlord had already posted a final notice on the door. When she opened it, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller, like the weight of her pride had finally crushed her. No makeup, puffy eyes, oversized sweatshirt. Liv? She whispered, voice trembling. Hey, I said quietly. Can I come in? She nodded weakly and stepped aside. The apartment was bare, boxes everywhere, takeout containers on the counter, unpaid bills scattered across the table. You don't have to see me like this, she murmured. I didn't come to see you fall, I said. I came to see if you're okay, she laughed bitterly. Do I look okay? I ruined everything. The business, the relationship, you. I don't even know who I am anymore. Maybe that's not a bad thing, I said gently. Maybe it's time to start from zero, without pretending to be someone you're not. Her eyes welled up. I thought I was better than you. I really did. And now I'm here and you're everything I wanted to be. No, I said softly. I'm just someone who refused to give up. You can still do the same, she shook her head. No one wants to work with me. My name's Poison. I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. What's this? She asked. A check, I said. Enough to get you a small place, start something new. She looked at it, then at me. Why would you do this? After everything I did? Because I remember the sister you were before all this, I said. And because holding grudges won't make me richer, it'll just make me smaller. Her lips trembled. I don't deserve this. Maybe not, I said quietly. But sometimes we don't get what we deserve. We get what we need. Flashback. The promise. That night, when I got home, I found myself thinking about Dad. The day before he died, he made me promise something. Live, he said, his voice weak but steady. No matter what happens, don't let bitterness turn your heart hard. Life will test you. People will too. But if you keep kindness, you'll always win in the end. Back then, I didn't understand. Now I did. Winning wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about staying yourself even when the world tried to turn you into someone else. The restaurant award a month later, Maison Azur was nominated for Best New Fine Dining Experience by Gourmet America. It was the kind of recognition chefs dream of their whole lives. The night of the ceremony, I wore a black gown and my late father's watch, the only thing I still had from him. As I walked onto the stage to accept the award, flashes went off, cameras, applause, and all I could think was how far that 19-year-old waitress had come. I gave a short speech. To everyone who ever felt underestimated, remember, your worth isn't measured by titles, clothes, or where you start. It's measured by how you treat people on the way up. Even the ones who hurt you. The audience stood and clapped. Some cried. And somewhere in the back I thought I saw Vanessa, standing in the shadows, watching quietly. The envelope a week after the award, a letter arrived at my office. No return address. Inside, there was a small note written in familiar handwriting. I got the apartment. Found a small job at a community center. It's not much, but it's honest. I'm learning to start over. Thank you for not closing the door on me. Vanessa. Underneath the note was a photo. Us as kids, covered in flour, baking cookies with Dad. I hadn't seen that picture in years. For the first time in a long time, I smiled without bitterness. Just warmth. The final scene that night, I closed the restaurant early. The city lights shimmered across the glass, the kitchen quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and whispered to myself, "It's strange." The revenge I thought I wanted never came the way I imagined. It didn't scream. It didn't burn. It just healed. Because real revenge isn't destruction. It's peace. It's knowing you survived everything meant to break you and came out softer, not colder. Epilogue. Moment, as I locked the door and turned to leave, I saw someone standing outside. Vanessa. Clean clothes, softer eyes. Holding a small bouquet of white lilies. "For you," she said quietly. They reminded me of home. I took them gently. "Thanks," I said. "I don't expect forgiveness," she added. "I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you, Liv. For real this time," I smiled. "That means more than you know." She hesitated, then whispered, "Maybe one day. We could bake again. Like we used to." My heart tightened. "Yeah," I said softly. "Maybe one day." She walked away, and for once, it didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like closure. End note. That night, Olivia finally understood. Revenge doesn't always mean victory. Sometimes it's just peace disguised as forgiveness.